So, wet morning, and we sort of ploughed through it, got most of it done, got the cuts done, and came down a bit, didn't it, Nick?
You did a bit, yeah.
Came down. But now it's stopped. We've decided that we ain't going to do any more because there's just so much water around at present. But anyway, I just wanted to sort of tell you a little bit about this machine. This is the DC 250 Expert, and 1250 meaning the size of the tiles that it can actually cut. Brilliant saw. A lot of you across the country are finding, some of you, not all of you, are finding it difficult how to cut porcelain, and it is difficult. And how you cut it and how the porcelain is cut is dependent on where it comes from. They say that the Italian and Spanish porcelain is the better porcelain, and it probably is, but it doesn't mean to say that occasionally some companies and some batches aren't always the best. Maybe, I don't know, but that's just an opinion. But certainly the Indians and the Turkish are producing porcelain now in, sort of state-of-the-art factories, and they're producing the porcelain. They've got the facilities, but have they got the knowledge? And the things about the Spanish and the Italians is that there's no doubt they have the knowledge. They've been producing porcelain for a long, long time. But cutting porcelain can be difficult. You get a thing called tension, and it's almost akin to, I would say, Nick, it's almost like cutting wood, isn't it? And the wood tightening up on one end when you're cutting it through. It's incredible to think, and it defies belief in some respects. It doesn't defy physics, because the physics speak for themselves. Is you'll be cutting through a length of porcelain and it will tighten up on one end, and you think, how's that happening? But it does, and that's the tension in the porcelain. That's the characteristic in it. So what you really need, you need a decent blade when cutting porcelain. What we've got on here, we have, let me just get this over for you now. This is the DC, this is the SPT blade on this DC Expert. Let me just come around there, I'll be able to show you.
Sure.
And let's pull this up a little bit, you can have a look underneath. If we just get a bit of a close-up on there, Nick. This is the SPT blade. It's not the cheapest, but you can vouch for me with this, can't you, Nick?
Yeah.
We used this on Richie's job, a previous project for my friend, and it was cutting perfectly, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was absolutely cutting perfectly, and it's cut copious amounts on here. And I have said it definitely cut over 250, 260 linear meters of cuts. There's no ifs or buts about that. That's what it was cutting, and it's done a lot more on this job as well. It's cut all the picture frame on here, and I believe there is 10, 20, 20 and 5. So we've been cutting about probably over 100 square meters, 100 linear meters of cuts as well on this particular project. So it's doing its work. And this blade, I have to say, this blade is almost like a caterpillar going through a cabbage leaf. It sort of chews it away. And what you'll find with this blade is that when you're cutting on a long length and you start at one depth and go all the way through, okay, porcelain doesn't close in on the previous cut. As you're going through, it stays the same. I'm not sure about the physics behind it, but that's what happens, okay? Obviously, when the blade gets older, it's not going to perform as well as it did at the start. But there's ways of maintaining the blade, and you can run this through. I know Rubi do a little stone that you can actually run through and cut through, and what it does, it basically cleans all the binding, the build up between the diamond on each segment. If you look at those, these are the segments, and I don't mean to sound facetious here, but each piece is a segment on there, and how they've got this is a segmental blade, and how they've got this is that you can see the little cooling splits they have in between each segment on there. So that's the Rubi SPT blade. There's enough to be said about that. This is a great little saw. The only thing I would say about this is 240, okay, and I prefer the 110 for safety, especially when you're working with water. Although everything is collected and it runs down the inside of these channels and it runs down into this reservoir, it's safe. But when working with water, you've got to think, these are all tested as well, obviously, for outside use. Don't pressure wash them, okay? they're not designed for that, so don't pressure wash anything around here. What I tend to do is that when I finish, at certain times, I'll spray all this with a bit of WD-40 like you would do, just to maintain your saw anyway. And the other thing, which I was going to say, when you clean your saw, if you see me cleaning at the start, is never rub your hand along the surface of here, because if you get a little fragment, and Nick can vouch for this, is that it will just cut your finger almost like a scalpel. You really got to think about that. That's not good at all. So tend to use a sponge, get some water on there, clean it off. Just think about what you're doing. The other thing, unfortunately, is that sometimes when you do a cut and you've slowed a slab and it's not quite right, and then make sure you clean your slurry off your slab before you put your slab back on. And I'm guilty of that sometimes, because like all of us, we're in a hurry sometimes and we haven't got the patience. So great saw, you've got the head here, this unlocks, comes round like so you can get your 45s or any other angle. That's your guide rail there, okay? That comes round when you're cutting straight, okay? Make sure when you're putting these back in, you put these the right way round, okay? Because it has been known for these to be around the wrong way or on the wrong side, and the next thing you know, people are cutting through the metal, which is not good at all. Yeah, Rubi's has improved this particular model in comparison to the other model. The other model, you have the legs where you have to pull up, okay, and then lock off, but now these just fold away underneath. They still could do a little bit of work on these, because sometimes people forget to, like myself, to undo the clip and let it drop back down, and then these bends. That's not good at all. The wheels are bigger on these as well. And I'll tell you now, this particular saw is really easy to move around. You've got this carrying handle here. Once the legs are folded up underneath into this part here, okay, that gets locked on. Make sure that's tightened off, and you don't want that coming around, because the last thing you want is the legs dropping down and hitting you in the shin. It's not good at all. So once these are up in place, you can lock it off, and then the wheels will be on one side. And the other thing I was going to say, when you're moving it around, is that you need to lock it off with this nut here. Have a little look at that one there, Nick, so our viewers can see. So it needs to be locked off there, because it has been known when I've dropped the saw down on this side, the saw slid across it and it hit me on the head. Not good at all. So yeah, so this is the DCX 250 1250, the Expert. Great little saw, perfect size. Do you know what I actually like with what they've done with Rubi on here? They've got the handle. I just like how the build on this is really good. I mean, it's really smart, it's really robust. And when you think of the amounts of times when you're going backwards and forwards with this takes a hammer in some respect. They've got this guard on the side to make sure the water doesn't splash out, but more than often I do have that bit up. They've got this python. Look at the python, Nick, on here now. So look at the python. This is the python. The water recycles, it comes around and it sprays on the blade, keeping the blade nice and cool. What you've got to try and understand is what the water does. The water encases the dust, okay? But as soon as the water hits a surface, the dust is released again. But what happens in this case, when the water comes round, okay, and it's collected the dust, it hits this brush here. This is developed in Holland, because they're very stringent on health and safety out there, and it hits the brush just like they are in the UK. But it hits the brush, and the droplets then drop down into the reservoir. That helps it to drop down without splashing all over the place. The last thing you want is the water spray coming off the blade and releasing the dust. There's the box for the reservoir, as I said. There's a pump here. You've got to make sure that you clean your pump out. Keep changing your water. We'll change that water probably tomorrow, because you do get a build-up at the bottom with sediment, which is basically the dust. You'll see when you clean that reservoir out, you'll be absolutely shocked the amounts of dust that you see, and you think that would be on your lungs if you never ever collected it in there. Think about that, and always think PPE. And you know, I've said it, and sometimes I don't always practice what I preach, but make sure you wear some safety glasses as well when you're using this. Great little saw. If you need any advice on this saw or anything else Rubi, don't give them a ring. Now you give them a ring if you want. They're a good company. Give me a ring, and I'm more than happy to talk you through it and advise you on where you can get one from, and see if they've got them in stock. I will know within an hour if they've got that product in stock for you. And you know, this is a fantastic machine. It serves its purpose. It's ideal for landscapers. It's saving lives. Okay, that's what it's doing. It's saving lives. And of course, if you're laying porcelain, it's a different ball game. It's not just like laying flags. They are difficult to cut, and we've got to think about how we're going about our business and making sure that we're leaving that project that we're on in good shape, and it's precise, it's concise, and the finishing should be second to none. Okay, and that's what these machines do. They help to achieve what you're looking for. So that's it. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, and give it a like. Don't forget to comment, because the comments actually help the analytics. Don't know if it's going to rain here this afternoon, Nick, or not, but we're off. See you later. Have a great week.